Stock Retail coming back to you, and I am just thrilled to have some great information to share with you guys today. I think it's going to be really, really impactful, very helpful. And I am just titling this, as you can see, just showing you the magic trick that the shills are playing on you. And, once you see how the trick is played, then it loses the illusion, and you can see through it. You know what the magician is doing. And of course, excited for Now You See Me, Now You Don't come into theaters here real soon for us. So I'm going to be talking today about our cash situation, and I'm going to talk to you. Actually, here, why don't I just tell you what we're going to go through? I'm going to kind of make our current liquidity known, make sure it's clear to us what our cash is and what our current liquidity is. I'm going to then say, all right, from there, basically, you know how I've told you guys many times, if you followed me a while, you've heard me say cash flows are real time. So there are just the constant, steady ins and outs, a bit like the tide or something. And of course, over time, you want a lot more cash coming in than what is going out. And we've been watching AMC's recovery. We've been watching the industry's recovery. We've been watching the impacts of our management. All of that ends up showing up in our cash flow. So I'm going to show you from where we are. What do we expect here in Q4 by the end of the year? What do we expect then in Q1? And there's a pretty big reason I'm going to talk about that. And then what's the combined view of those? And the reason then, if I just go back a minute, that I'm talking about kind of a sleight of hand by the shills. There's a couple of things going on. One is they have been pretty desperate to discredit me for a very long time. I don't always tell you guys all the things I see and all the things that go on behind the scenes in terms of people trying to take me down over the years. But the latest is, oh, he won't talk to you about the hard stuff. And I'm just going to show you and dispel all of that. It's pretty clear. And if you're paying attention, you know a few people who try to say that stuff. It's nonsense. I'm going to show you, what's going on. But here's the other thing. Those same people are constantly negative. If year after year, month after month, over and over and over, someone can kind of only be negative, you're supposed to start to ask why. Why do they want me to feel negative so badly? And that is the definition of FUD, isn't it? They're spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's okay to talk about reality, and I think everyone who follows me knows. It's even, go back to my last video. I show you the FUD Buster scorecard. I commit myself to showing the data every time, letting the data tell a story so it's not hype-based. And it's good and proper to talk about reality, but it's not good and proper to give someone a very narrow vision of reality. Like, I'm sitting at a window upstairs right now. If someone kind of narrowed down, like put blinders over 90% of the window, I'm not going to get an accurate perception of what's outside. And that is what the shills are doing to you. That is the illusion I'm going to show you. So we're going to have to go through current state. What's Q4 doing? Where will that kind of take our cash? What's Q1 then doing? Because that's the one they want to really focus you on. That's my point. They're trying to put blinders on you about the rest of our business and get you really focused. And I wouldn't even just say Q1. I'd say just kind of January and February. They really want to spook you. And we're going to kind of undo that and unfud you. We're sort of FUD proof you. And then I want you to know the combined view of our cash. In kind of probably the next video, then I'm also going to expand out and show you the rest of 2026. So today we're going to go through Q1 of 26, and then in a future video, we'll kind of do the rest. So real quick, I'm going to pop open, I just have a cranberry ginger ale here, guys. We have this ongoing debate in my house. So a little bit of personal stuff for fun before I get to the rest of the video. Ongoing debate in my house. I like to keep Christmas special. I love Christmas. And so often for a long time, I had a rule that it was kind of like no Christmas till after Thanksgiving. It's like, we got to have Thanksgiving first and have the fun. I have 3 kids and my wife. The 4 of them have really ganged up on me over the years and keep expanding it. So then I had a rule of, all right, it's 5 weeks or Thanksgiving, whichever comes first. And then I think last year they pushed me out to 6 weeks in here. So today, my wife came home with some cranberry ginger ale and is putting up decorations. I'm slowly losing the fight here in the house, but it's yummy. So cheers to everybody. I'm going to take a quick sip. All right. So here's the thing first. I got to set this up because the shills, like I said, they desperately want to discredit me. They try it all over X. They try it on space calls. They try it on their YouTube channels. It's hilarious to me, to be honest, that they've tried this long. It's like, give up, guys. It's not happening. I'm an actual organic voice. The reason you haven't found the kill shot on me is because I'm actually real as opposed to an influencer like many of them. I'm not for sale. So here's the thing. Back in October, November of 2023, we had just come off those two great quarters where we actually go back. You can see we had positive cash flows, we had positive earnings, even positive net income. A couple of great, we had the Barbenheimer quarter, we had the Mario quarter. Really great. 2023 was going. And at that time, of course, we hit the strike. And so towards the end of the year, it was kind of October, November. I was even on vacation with my family, and I made a video where I showed you the entire strike impact, and I showed you when we would recover, and I nailed it. I got it honestly spot on. And so that, I hope, helped a lot of people be FUD proof to see, okay, and by the way, this is the demonstration of, yes, we talk about the hard stuff on my, I don't know, X account and on my YouTube account. I showed what the strike was going to do to us, but I also showed when it was going to end, and that helped, myself at least be patient. Hopefully that helped some of you, and to know we were going to be fine, and we were fine. And it helped understand some of the moves that Adam and team had made. And then in the fall of 2024, so around this time again, October, November, I started telling you guys that the full year of 2024, what that looked like. I talked about the hard Q1 we were going to see, so there's the hard stuff again. But I pointed the way that the final 3 quarters of the year would be cash flow positive. I started telling you that even before Adam and Sean, and boom, nailed it. That is going to happen, and you hear them saying that on the earnings calls. So I'm going to show you I kind of even go back to the last video and review that a little bit. And then I'm teaching you guys how to look at our cash flows. If you aren't, an expert at that, or some of you already know how to do it, but you don't have the time to do the DD I'm doing. So fine, you can take some of my DD. Of course, always do your own DD. No, trust me, bros. But I'm going to show you the path for the entire next year. And I guess you have to ask whether I'm going to get that wrong or not. So the shills are kind of, hey, he won't tell you what's happening. He's not going to, he's too rah-rah, whatever. Meanwhile, the actual reality is I keep telling you what's going to happen more than a year before it happens, and I keep getting it right. So I think that ought to earn me the right to be listened to. I've said so many times on this channel, you need to look for people with credibility and integrity. Credibility meaning, can they get things right? Well, scoreboard here. And integrity, will they be honest about what's going on? And in both cases, I've said, hey, tough Q1. Hey, tough strike impact. Speaking of which, my slide is not advancing. Here we go. All right. So, sorry guys, I had a little bit of a lag on my computer there. All right. So speaking of, where I've been showing you guys what's going on, this was a slide I had done, or a chart really in Excel that I had done. And you can see back then I was showing you, this was before the strike really even happened. And I showed you the strike impact. And so I've just kept this slide because I think it really visually shows us what's happened too. If you look without the strike, so you can see here's FY23, right? Let me back up because some of you are new followers. This is a chart that I keep that tracks a rolling year at the box office. And so I just want to know, how is the box office shaping up if we look at any 4 quarters in a row? So you can see, here's all of 2022. If it says FY, that means fiscal year. Darn, guys, sorry. Fiscal 2022, but then you see Q2 of 22 through Q1, and so on and on and on. This is just a rolling year at the box office. And you can see we were just rocketing upwards, right? And then you get to that Barbenheimer quarter here at the top. Actually, this is now the full combined year of 2023. So even though Q4 was a little light, it means it kind of was probably better than Q4 of 2022. And so full year 2023, we get to this peak we had, and boom, the strike starts really hitting. Of course, Taylor Swift helped us here, didn't she? So if you kind of just drew a line here, right? Like some of you like to chart. If you took this 2023 and you were drawing a line, think about where the box office probably would have been if you're tracing this arrow of mine on the screen. And think about how we would have had profit after profit after profit that time. So the strike was really obviously pretty painful and took a lot. And so in many ways, I applaud Adam and team because they didn't just lead AMC through COVID. They really had to do it twice. They led through this. You can just see this huge strike impact. Goosh, drop down. Okay, but since then, you've seen our radical recovery, which I also called. I told you when that would start. In particular, in April, that we were going to start to see. I think actually, I take that back. I'm mixing up years. In 2024, it was kind of May, June. When Inside Out kind of came and Twisters and some of those things. In 2025, it was April when we started to get a little better, which I had shown you that too. And that matters, again, because we talk about the timing of cash flows. So here's the point. We are now in Q4 of 2025. and we're going to be about here on the rolling year. The reason for this little dip, everyone knows by now that our Q1 was pretty tough. And so when you start adding in Q1 and trading out other quarters, we went down a little bit. But look at what's coming. So we are going to start to go places we have not been since pre-COVID. It's going to start to get real fun here. And so I kind of wanted to give you that view again, remind you of our history a little bit. And if you just note, when we swap out last year, so 2025's Q1 for 2026's Q1, you notice we're getting a pretty big jump. We're going to talk a bit about that. So what you need to know then, let me just really make sure you look at this strike impact, right? So the box office was way down. Here's something I don't think everybody really knows or remembers, and you need to know this because for me, this is part of what gives me trust in our management team. You need to understand that in 2024, we improved our cash flow in spite of the strike, in spite of this happening to Adam and team. If you look at FY23 was up here, and look at this FY24 down, right? So in spite of a smaller box office, we had actually better cash flows. That is a significant achievement. So you can see the box office was down $360 million. But if you look at our cash flow from operations, we had improved it by $70 million. Imagine losing almost $400 million just domestic box office, out of your business, and you end up with better cash flows from operations. I want to clarify for people who aren't used to tracking financials, the reason I'm highlighting cash from operations is that does not include financing activities. So when you have things like selling shares, and we talk about dilution, another thing we'll be honest about here, when you have new debt, different things like that, that is cash you can generate from financing activities. And so what I'm telling you is our business, our straight up business, improved by $70 million even on a down box office in 2024. And then our free cash flow also had improved. So we're going to be talking about over time all of these metrics, this cash from operations. It's basically, if running your business, if keeping your doors open, did that make money? And then free cash flow also kind of brings in other things like you've got investments, that the team has had the go plan and some things like that. Pardon me, taking another quick drink. Hang with me because I'm going to show you how the shills are messing with you. And I'm going to show you why I'm right and they're wrong for the, 500th time in our journey here. All right. First, I just want everybody to know what's our position. This is our going in. And then we're going to now finally talk about the forecasts. You need to know this is from AMC's last filing. You can go find this. This is from the balance sheet. So you have something called cash and cash equivalents. We have about $366 million in cash as of September 30th. That is, when we file the earnings, we file as of the end of that quarter. So September 30th, we had $366 million in cash. And then sometimes you won't count, like if you're thinking about your liquidity, sometimes you won't count restricted cash. There are different rules on why they've got to hold that aside. It's not as available to use. And then we've got receivables. So I've told you guys that's a little bit like somebody owes you money and they're supposed to pay pretty soon. And so that's going to be cash coming in. And then we've got other current assets. And so our total current assets right now, $620 million. If you want to just count just cash, that's the $366 million. So we're going to do that a little bit because I want to show you then, if you just think, so let me go back even. The guys have demonstrated a pattern of improving our cash flows. So we got improved cash flows in 2024, even on a down box office. And then I'm going to show you year over year what we're probably looking like. So if you look in Q4 2024, we had about a $2.3 billion box office. And that was a really nice quarter for our cash. So what happens, and I kind of started to tell you this in the last video, generally what happens is you will see Q4 is, I believe, pretty much our best quarter in terms of cash flows. I'm not sure completely yet why that is. I have a feeling it just has to do with the timing of certain expenses. Adam has even said the even quarters are just a little better than the odd quarters. This is the timing of when AMC has different bills due and things like that. So I have a feeling there's probably something in the business model that we're taking care of things along the year, and then Q4 is a little bit more gravy. And that's nice because then also, as the industry recovers and we start having holiday blockbusters, um, Q4s are going to be real fun quarters, I think, in general for us. So, wrapping up the year on a positive note feels good, right? And well, look, so last year, $2.3 billion box office, our cash from operations, we brought in $200 million of positive cash flows last year. And then you can see the free cash flow number is a little lower because I told you we've got investing activities. So if we were increasing our IMAX screens, if we were putting in new seats, if we were putting in laser projections, even if I know somewhere along the way, Adam and team have told us now that they've invested in this Nova Sky Stories. So there is money invested that kind of gets removed from. So if operations contributed $200 million, we spent a little money on investments, and even free cash flow though was a positive $114 million. And now I want you to think year over year. So from last year to this year, what has changed? And now I'm going to show you then why I believe we have even better cash flow this year. So first off, you can see the box office. Now this is a forecast, but we've wrapped up October. We kind of know now what Predator is going to do, and we've got pretty good forecasts based on pre-sales of some of the big movies, like say, Wicked for Good, and Avatar, and some other movies like that. So we've got some real big movies the rest of the quarter. I'm very excited. And I even showed you that obviously I'm excited about Now You See Me, Now You Don't. And I believe, so this is my forecast, we're going to land somewhere 2.5 to 2.6 billion, maybe a little over 2.6 if I've been too conservative. But 2.5 to 2.6 feels pretty solid. And so we're more than $200 million improvement at the box office versus last year. And that's another, by the way, note. You should be noticing who the shills are when people are over revving on how October was so tough. October was not good, but remember, we moved out the Michael Jackson biopic, and we moved out Mortal Kombat 2. If those had been in, we'd have been looking at maybe even kind of, I'm not sure, I'd have to look at history, but probably pushing for maybe all-time record October. So that's how quick you can go from an all-time record to a tough October. But look at the rest of the quarter, and still now I want you to pull back and think about, are we going the right direction with our business? Are we improving? Well, look at last year. Last year to this year, we're more than $200 million better. And look at our cash from operations. Now, what I have done, I'm not showing you how the sausage was made really, but I've got all kinds of forecasts about our expenses, how much money we make. Adam has also given you some nice napkin math. He has said for every dollar we bring in, a little over 60% tends to flow through to EBITDA. And so you can kind of roughly guess the history of how much money AMC makes as a percent of the US box office, how much our revenue is. And then Adam told you how much flows out down to EBITDA. So that can kind of help you a little bit to kind of guess at the cash flows. And I will just caution again that these are forecasts. I'm going to get this wrong. But directionally, I can tell you with a lot of confidence, the direction we're moving here. And it's clearly up, because if you improve the box office by more than $200 million over last year, and then let me review this list at the bottom, because you're going to see this on a couple slides. Remember that we have reduced our debt in that time, and the Fed has already lowered rates a couple times and probably is going to again in December. And so, you've got reduced borrowing costs. Well, that is cash that we get to keep. That improves your cash flow. I am thinking, and notice there's two question marks here, and you can hear the question in my voice. So I haven't put much confidence in this particular number, and I haven't given a big number, but I am thinking we may see lower capital expenditures. So that Adam said, for example, we're on the home stretch of the IMAX implementations. I think basically he means we've been having the outflows, the investments. We will not have quite as aggressive of investments there. I could definitely be wrong. I was driving around when we did the earnings release last week, and so I know I heard Adam say something about our CapEx number, or maybe Sean did, and I didn't catch that. So I do think this Q4 over last Q4, though, I think we're going to be a little bit lower on our CapEx number, the way we've been tracking on the year. And then I do believe we'll start to see some more, just year over year, in terms of last year versus this year. We have more lasers, more improved seats, more PLF screens, so those premium large format screens, Dolby, IMAX, AMC XL. And so I think we're seeing a return on that. And you see that in the ticket prices. You also see how food and beverage spending is up. So there's a lot of things. What I'm telling you is that's better than last year, besides just the box office. And then on top of all that, remember that since then we've added those advertisements during the previews, and Adam has said that will bring in tens of millions of dollars a year. So you can see that right now I've got a plug of just 7.5 million a quarter. Well, that would be 30 million a year. I can call that tens of millions. So you can decide if I'm too high or too low on that. But the point is, we definitely have more money, more cash on that item than last year. So here's a lot of improvements besides also the box office and what that's driving for AMC. So you can see the point is, I believe we're approaching $300 million cash from operations. That's a pretty big stinking deal, guys. And, $88 million better than last year. And I believe we're over $200 million on free cash flows. I will put a big asterisk on that one. Last year at this time, I was a little bit surprised how big our accounts payable was. If we basically pay out sooner on some bills, you will see that this won't be quite as big of a free cash flow, I don't think. But if I'm just trying to compare apples to apples, so I'm saying, let's say we're basically like last year to this year, and I'm only going to measure what changed. And so just note that I could be wrong on this, but the point is something better. We were 9 digits last year in this quarter on free cash flow. I believe will be something even better than that. And I'm saying an improvement of another 9 digits, another 100 million plus. So you should be hearing, let's even go back. Give me a second. If we're coming into the quarter with $366 million of cash, unrestricted cash, plus, if I say a total of $620 million of total current assets, and then I'm telling you we're going to generate, maybe as much as $200 million of free cash flow. So we're going to leave this quarter with a couple $100 million more cash than we came into it, right? And so that right there was really important for you to know, because the shills are focusing you on Q1 and saying, oh no, we're going to burn cash in Q1. But they're not talking about how we're right now going to be generating cash. Remember, cash flows are real time. I'm going to take another quick sip here. So I'm trying to take you on a walk. That's a finance term, by the way. You'll go through a walk where you say, where did we start? What are the, you call puts and takes or ups and downs or whatever, the ins and outs. What's the pluses and minuses from where we started? And that walks you to where we're landing. Okay, so you should be hearing, we came into the quarter with that $366 million of cash, and I'm telling you, we're generating $200 or $300 million of cash. Sweet. You should be clapping and applauding, because that is going to be a post-COVID record. That is fantastic. I suppose I should double check that's our record, but I'm pretty darn sure that it is. So also note that even though Q4 isn't as big as I had hoped, Tron didn't quite perform where I wanted it to. There's a couple other movies that weren't quite what I had forecast, like this Springsteen movie. And so even though it's not what I had hoped, we are well above last year, and Q4 was fantastic last year. So now I need to set up Q1, all right? Because by the end of this, I want to give you the combined picture, and this is absolutely going to kill FUD for any and all of you, and probably help you when you get to the Thanksgiving table, to help people, friends and family, understand why AMC is about to start looking a lot better. All right, so Q1, first you need to keep in mind that any forecast you have, you've got to remember there's going to be a significant amount of carryover from the end of Q4 into Q1. What I mean by that is Avatar is coming out, I believe, the 19th of December, right? So it's only out for, like 13 days in December, if you count the 19th as day one. So we know a lot of the revenue is then actually going to be in Q1 of 2026. So start right there. I will just say right now, in terms of revenue in Q1 of 2026, I'm pretty sure I have Avatar as our biggest movie. So it's going to be the biggest movie in Q1, even though it releases in Q4, because just Avatar is that big. So here's some history for you. Way of Water, the carryover from Q4 into Q1 of the next year was almost $300 million. It's $280 million. And you need to know, Fire and Ash actually releases 3 days later in December than Way of Water did. So there's 3 less days in December, or think of that as kind of, in a way, 3 more days in January than what we had last time around. So if last time around we had $280 million that rolled over into January, I would think this time around, all things being equal, it's something more. And so if you look, the final 3 days, so if I'm saying there's three less days, and if you take those last 3 days in December of last time, those were $63 million from Fire and Ash. So kind of start there and say, well, what do you think Fire and Ash is compared to Way of Water? And for now, I'm being conservative. I have forecast actually something less than Way of Water. I have a smaller number, but it's still Avatar, so I still have a very, very big number in my forecasts. Um, and so there is something probably bigger in January from Fire and Ash than there was from Way of Water. That's the main point. So you need to start there with Q1 as you think about how big is my Q1 forecast. And then just don't sleep on SpongeBob also comes out very late. There's a Timothy Chalamet movie that is picking up steam called Marty Supreme. And so far, all of the Timothy Chalamet movies have done well. Now, this one is a little more indie looking to me, so I'm not suggesting it's a blockbuster, but it's not nothing. And it releases pretty late. It might even be Christmas Day. Releases pretty late in the quarter, and there are a few others. There's a couple other movies that release late in the quarter, and if any of those is a nice surprise and is bigger than I forecast, now you've just got that much more in January. So January starts right off with a bunch of movies that come out in late December that are going to put some revenue into Q1 of 2026. So that's the first thing you need to know. And then I'm just going to show you what I believe are the biggest films of Q1, and then very soon here we're going to get to the forecast. So I gave you the cash forecast. I don't usually do that. I gave you the cash forecast flowing out of Q4. I gave you what we brought into Q4. Now I'm going to help walk you to my Q1 forecast, and then by the end of this, we'll put it all together so you know what's our overall cash walk. All right, so Q1 2026, we got Greenland 2. I'll tell you, so Greenland 1, I believe, came out when we were still kind of in the height of lockdowns across much of the country. So I had missed it. In Oregon, we stayed locked down a lot later than some. I won't get political about that today, but suffice it to say, I wasn't loving that. And so I missed Greenland 1, but since then, I've actually watched it twice because I watched it on a business trip, and then I was like, wow, I really like this movie. And then I showed it to a couple of my family members. And so I would suggest that this may do, fairly well. And it's a Gerard Butler movie, and he's obviously been a fairly big star. He's had some success. So I'm hopeful that this one's going to do all right. I've got a fairly conservative forecast, though, on it. We get the Bone Temple for 28 years later. So I find often when you kind of successively have a story that's building, sometimes that builds revenue as well. You're going to get some people who maybe had waited on the last 28 years later who perhaps streamed that, but now are like, oh, actually, I like that. Maybe I'm going to go see the next one in the theater. So I think that one's going to do okay. And don't quote me on this because I don't totally follow that franchise. It's a little bit violent for me, but I believe Cillian Murphy might be in this one. You guys can kind of help clarify that. Maybe I hope I'm not over hyping or fighting on that. And then if you don't know, so there is a film coming out that actually Steph Curry, basketball Steph Curry is the main voice behind and the main personality behind. So you're going to get a lot of fans, like my 11-year-old son, who I guess he's almost 12, who's a big fan of Steph. And so I think this may be a sleeper hit. Let's see how good the movie is. Let's see how much it kind of tugs at the heartstrings, things like that. But a family-friendly movie using, perhaps maybe almost the biggest star in basketball. I can't quite say that probably. You got a lot of big stars. I love basketball. You guys know that. I coach 2 teams right now. But Steph is certainly up there in the stratosphere of stars in basketball. So I don't think that movie's going to be nothing. That'll be a decent size. We get Scream 7. Maybe I'll just keep clicking through these. We get Soulmate, which I hadn't realized until recently is actually a spinoff from the Megan movies. So that's why I think that may do okay. You've got that connection to a franchise that some people have liked, and so let's see how that one does. You've got a new Exorcist movie. Here again, I'll kind of just admit that one's not going to be for me, but some of you love those horror movies, so I don't think that's going to be too small. And then you've got a nice Pixar movie coming up, another sort of family-friendly one, obviously. We'll see how that does. Pixar's, I'll admit, been kind of hit or miss with new franchises. Some have just knocked it out of the park, and some have had to kind of get built up in terms of a brand. But it is Pixar, so I don't discount that at all and think that there's a chance that could hit some nice numbers. And then I think the one that I'm the most excited about for the quarter, not as an investor here, but just as a fan, is Project Hail Mary. So if you've seen The Martian, I think it's the same guy who wrote both books, and you know how big the Martian movie was. You know how big Ryan Gosling is, and when you get sci-fi and someone having to kind of save humanity, and you get a well-known author who many people have read the book, I think that movie is going to do fairly well too. So you can see it's not that we don't have a decent amount of movies in Q1, but I will say, we don't have as many huge blockbusters. Let me, before I move on, just share you there are a few others I'm not even showing you here. You've got things like I Can Only Imagine 2. There's two movies that I believe are both from Amazon that I'm pretty excited about. One has Chris Pratt, one has Chris Hemsworth. They are kind of crime mysteries, although pretty different from each other. One's a little more sci-fi AI. That's the Chris Pratt one. One is kind of more of a heist movie with Chris Hemsworth. And I am very excited about those. And I'm very happy to see Amazon supporting theatrical and putting those as a theatrical release. So I think us as apes ought to kind of reward them for that personally. Wuthering Heights is coming out. There's a new kind of a reboot or a take on that. You've actually got a dark comedy by Liam Neeson. It's kind of like a virus gets out in the world movie, but I think it's supposed to be a comedy, and that's with Liam Neeson. So certainly you've got some star power behind that. And then there's even some other movies I'm not quite listing. So all in all, what I'll just show you is that yes, Q4 is still light, and yes, we're going to talk about cash burn, but I would focus and laser in on this. Last year, so now I'm calling it last year, but it's 2025, was 1.4 billion at the box office in Q1. It was tough. That's not a good quarter. None of us like that. And even this next Q1, while it's also tough, let me take a quick drink here. What the shills don't like to focus on is the improvement, right? It's always been survive then thrive, and are we going the right direction? Can we improve? And I'm going to show you in a minute sort of how that looks for our cash, which is, we're closer to the thrive part of things, but the shills still want to scare you, like, oh no, will they survive or whatever. And so our delta, first of all, delta in business, I guess I didn't say that before, just change, shift. Are you going up or down? So our increment, our change, we are up $250 million at the box office. Now, remember what I said. You can see over time what percent of the US box office AMC ends up making in global revenue, because I'm showing you the domestic box office, but of course, we have our European properties where we make revenue also. And so there, you can just take a percent of this. It's a little over half. I don't know, 54, 55%, depends on the quarter. There's some percent of the box office that ends up being total global AMC revenue. Then there's a percent of that, as Adam said, that kind of flows down to EBITDA. And you can kind of do some rough math. And you can see I've got that math, but this here again, like the last time I showed you the slide, it's not just straight napkin math, because then there's other things I'm calculating, like what's our shift in capital expenses? Are we seeing some better returns on the Go plan in terms of ticket prices and food and beverage and market share? Remember how we had market share gains in Q3, sorry, that we just reported. And then we've got our reduced borrowing costs that I told you. And by the time we get to Q1, right, so I said a lot of people are predicting the Fed is reducing rates again in December. And so the October and November and December rate cuts now are all fully baked in for Q1. You notice that if a rate cut happened in October, part of Q4 was already happening. AMC didn't get the full savings from that in the quarter. If a rate cut happened in November, even less of those savings hit that quarter. And then obviously in December, kind of almost nothing hits the quarter. But if all three of those rate cuts now are all live when we go into Q1, you're getting even more borrowing savings. So that starts to improve our cash even more. And then again, for a few quarters here until we do what's called anniversarying, or we anniversary those advertising dollars, that's going to show up as growth year over year. So all of these things are contributing. If you've grown the box office and you've kind of gotten better on a whole variety of things in your business, then our cash from operations has improved almost $100 million from the previous rough quarter. I'm showing you the numbers. These are not pretty numbers. But in a minute, remember that we need to look at the combined cash flow. If, on Monday, someone gives you a lot of money and on Tuesday you pay a bill, You don't just focus on the fact you paid that bill in your real life, do you? You focus on your total checking account or savings account and how that's going. And you're happy that you brought in the money on Monday and paid the bill on Tuesday. Okay? That's what's happening. I'm showing you Q4 bringing in a lot of money and money that we already had before that. Then I'm showing you, okay, some is flowing back out. The tide is shifting in and out. And you need to see the whole picture because the shills only want you seeing this Q1. I know because I see things that people send me, and I see things even that some people even sneaky kind of try to FUD me, and I just ignore that. But anyway, so our cash from operations, I'm showing you in Q1, we will burn cash. Operations will burn cash. We do not have a big enough box office in Q1. Q1 is always the lightest quarter, and then on top of that, we need the industry to start getting a little bit stronger in terms of a Q1 recovery. Hold this thought because I'm going to show you a lot of positives before the end of the video. Do not let me FUD you. And then I do believe our free cash flow. Remember, I said you got to add investments on top of that and some other things will be negative, significantly negative. But here's the thing. Why don't we jump to combining those? I'm going to show you a combined view that the shills are not going to bother doing. And let's look year to year. Let us look at the combined Q4 and Q1. So of Q4 of 24, that nice positive cash flow quarter we had, and Q1 of 25, the really rough quarter we had. Let's combine those. And let's do it again for this forecast for what we are in now with Avatar and Wicked for Good and Five Nights at Freddy's and Zootopia, right? We've got a much better quarter than even last year. And last year was already great in Q4. Anyway, and then I've shown you just a minute ago, right? I said that we improve even Q1, as tough as this one looks, it's still an improvement. So let's look at the combined total picture. Well, this year over last year, we improved by almost $500 million at the box office. No shill is telling you that. As they point you to Q1 and say, oh no, this is coming, they don't tell you that the box office has improved $500 million on the 2 quarters that we haven't yet reported, right? We haven't closed Q4 and we haven't even started Q1. So I'm sort of fast forwarding you when I keep telling you things before they happen. When we report Q1, that will probably be in May of next year. We'll have the earnings call. You'll see me, hopefully, if I'm not too busy. A lot of times I live post that on X. We'll all talk about earnings. And what I'm telling you is from here to there, what's going on? Well, improvement of $500 million, almost this $474 million at the box office. Our cash from operations, look at shifting from a combined negative 166. Now, see, that's that thing of where the shills don't show you. They point to, oh man, last Q1, we burned 370. Well, okay, but Q1 and Q4 combined last year were more like a minus 170. Look at what I'm showing you this year. Even with our tough Q1, I actually think cash from operations in those 2 combined quarters is a net positive. That's a big stinking deal. If you can continue to have a broader time frame of positive cash flow, that's why I was telling you how our last 9 months of this year are positive. If you're getting a longer time frame of positive cash flows, then your runway kind of starts being forever and the shorts are kind of hosed. Give me a second to take a sip here. So what I'm showing you then is this time period we're in right now will improve almost $190 million over last year. And our free cash flows, while still negative, but look at that, only a negative 101 million. What did I tell you we were coming in? Actually, I've got it right here. What did I tell you we're coming in with? 366. So even if the team doesn't take any other actions, we already have enough. We're fine. We came into the quarter, and I'm not even showing you total liquidity. I'm just showing you our cash position. We came into the quarter with 366. Granted, I've told you I'm going to get this wrong, but if I'm anywhere remotely near, I'm telling you we're going to come out of these 2 quarters with $265 million, even if we don't take any other action. That alone should tell you, anybody spreading fear to you, just kick them to the curb, guys. Stop following these people. I don't know why you put up with it. Honestly, sometimes I'm very frustrated because if I keep telling you what's happening and getting it right, and all these people want to take a bite out of me, you ought to be asking, what's their agenda? Why are they doing that? You already know the answer if you'll kind of be willing to be honest with yourself. And it's also, I'm going to be real honest, some of you, on X in particular, if I see that you follow some of these people, I'm not following you. I just give up. I'm like, all right, we've been almost 5 years. They ought to know who's good and who's bad by now. I'm not putting up with this stuff anymore. So that I'll get off my soapbox. But the main thing is you see what a great improvement we have. You see that even with this rough Q1 in both years, far, far better this year. We're generating enough cash in Q4 that we come in with a nice little war chest. And then, but before the end of this video, by the way, I'm also going to talk about, so I said, even if Adam doesn't do anything else, I think we're fine to get through Q1 without any further action. But if he starts to say, I don't want to be in that position, I'm going to show you the levers we could pull. Or if you want to say, oh man, stock retail's being way too aggressive with his forecast, I don't think I am. The last couple quarters, I've been cautious and we've ended up beating my number at the box office. And then this last quarter with AMC taking market share, I did not forecast that. AMC also beat my per person ticket price. So everything's been beating my forecast of late. And so let us hope that we could continue that. And I've stayed conservative for you guys. So I'm telling you, I do not think this is any kind of hype forecast. If Wicked or Avatar or Zootopia or Five Nights at Freddy's, if something starts beating my forecasts, then you're going to see some real nice numbers here. And we're doing fine. That's the main point. Like, chill, get to this Friday, I guess, and have a party and enjoy the weekend or whatever. Go see some movies. So let's cover a couple other things. I just showed you what's going on in the business, but now let's not forget that also. I don't know if this still holds true or not. We will see. But I'm pointing you to a podcast you can go find. You can see the title at the bottom here, How to Save Movies with the CEO of AMC Theaters. The podcast is called The Town. This was, I don't know, 3 months ago maybe, where Adam went on a podcast. It's a nice long form conversation with Adam. I did feel like the host from time to time was a little bit combative, but honestly, it was also a little bit playful between them. I thought it was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. In fact, I listened to it twice. But in that, there was a big nugget where Adam said he has perhaps his biggest announcement coming in January or February, but he couldn't tell us about it. I don't know what that is. You don't know what that is. Plenty of people have guessed at different things. I'm just going to wait and let Adam decide when to tell us whatever that is. So I don't know if that's just something kind of fun or if it's something like deeply impactful to the business. We're going to find out, but do not sleep on everything I've just shown you in that Q1 forecast. I don't have any forecast for whatever this announcement is. Nothing. If he implements something that gives us a big win, then all bets start to be off on my forecast and maybe it gets better. So that's one thing. Then I'm going to just show you some of the levers. This is just a way we would talk about it in business. Like if things are going good or bad, you can kind of throttle up, throttle down, try to take actions. This is just normal stuff that you can take actions to kind of move your business, hit the accelerator or hit the brake, these kinds of things. And really clearly want to say, look at the left where I say, I do not believe they need to do any of these levers. I am not meaning to FUD anybody, but I also just want you to know, if I've already shown you that I believe the cash flows from the business make us safe. And remember, then the rest of 2026 is coming, and we're going to talk about that before the end of the video. So even just getting through, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So let's call it, in theory, the worst of times, Q1. Even getting through that, I'm telling you, I believe we're good to go. But here are other levers that will happen if Adam and team feel that, if reality is not matching my forecast. First off, we've got our share vote. We're going to find out here soon how we all voted. And if we approve that, then you all know that AMC is going to greatly decrease debt. There's a pretty big debt to equity swap that may happen. And Adam will have shares at his disposal, which he can always generate cash from. Now, that's dilution, right? Let's be honest about that. But it's certainly a far cry from not having enough cash. So if he gets that lever at his disposal, that's out there. He could take on more debt. I'm not saying that that's a happy thing. I don't want that. But I'm telling you that lever is out there. He could access, they have credit facilities, guys. So that's actually the main one that, the team has. They're not huge. I don't remember the total size of those credit facilities, and I bet he could increase them if he needed to, but that can come at a cost. But if all else failed, he can run the credit card for a month, and then, the blockbusters come back in. And again, hold, because I'm going to show you when that comes, all right? But yes, they have credit facilities. You can Band-Aid yourself if your cash is getting tight and say, all right, I'll pay these in a month. I'm going to put these on loan, basically. We could sell investments. Don't forget, we have Highcroft, we have the Nova Sky stories. I know that Adam would like to hold those for a while and see a healthy return on those, or I believe that. But, in a pinch, we've got that money. You could sell that. You could generate millions of dollars of cash. And so I just want you to start hearing like each of these things is making us safer and safer and safer. And you just got to start ignoring the shills, in my opinion. You could kind of be more aggressive on accounts receivables. Account receivables. I don't know why I called that accounts receivables. But anyway, account receivables, that is that sort of, somebody owes me money because I did some business for them or whatever. You can start to try to pick up the phone and get some people to pay some bills and be somewhat aggressive with that. That brings in cash. You can run promotions. We could get more butts in seats. We could get more people subscribing to A-List. We could try to sell the candy. There are various promotional actions we could take. Again, I'm not saying I recommend that because you train your consumers sometimes too, and you can get into a kind of promotional cycle where people, see you as a discount brand or whatever. So I'm not saying we need to do that. I'm not saying we even should do that, but I'm letting you know Adam has a lot of levers at his disposal to make sure that we are safe with cash. And he and Sean, and then their teams by extension, have sort of hyper focused on that over the years, and they've done a great job. So I am not concerned, is the main point. And then finally, they could sort of put a freeze on expenses. They could stop business travel. They could and by the way, it's not even when you're in trouble that you do this. Sometimes it's just to hit numbers. I told you guys I was at Nike 21 years. There were many years where the final quarter, all of a sudden, travel was frozen or new hires were frozen. We would just delay hiring new people. There's a lot of ways in an enterprise that you can tighten your expenses for a quarter or two if you need to. And that is even done at healthy companies like Nike and Apple and others. We can pause our capital expenses. Let's say we had an iMac screen we were going to do in Q1, and Adam says, you know what, we'll do that in Q2. That kind of stuff happens all the time too. So just so you know, I'm showing you that in the business, that's the previous slides, we're generating cash in Q4, plus the cash we already have. I believe we're fine for Q1, plus the fact that it's better year over year. And then on top of that, Adam has all these levers to pull. Okay. So this should just kind of let you be like, you know what? I'm going to like spot the shills and ignore them and start to block and mute and unfollow and all that stuff. I said that I would kind of show you then total 2025. And this, I really, really think you should know this. What I want you to see is actually, I think there's a chance now, and I had missed this before. I've never shown you this. I talked about how the final 9 months would be cash flow positive. That's more like that free cash flow. I think there's a chance that if you just look at the cash from operations line, which is before expenses and before financing, I think there's a chance that we may deliver full year. This is on the left here, full year cash from operations, positive cash from operations, maybe as much as 40 or 50 million dollars. We're going to have to see because I keep telling you the odds are I'm going to be wrong. Cash flows are a lot harder for me to forecast. A lot of things happen. And I just said there's all kinds of levers that Adam and Sean can pull. And so, the rate of investment, different bills can make me be wrong on the cash flows. So listen to them more than me. But I will just say, I think it's in sort of sniffing distance that if we get enough box office this quarter, I think there's a chance you could see full year positive cash from operations. But overall, just remind yourself 2025, the box office is up almost $500 million because we had the strike last year. My forecast is that I've got us up 191 million on cash from operations, and that I've got us improving 114 million dollars, basically doubling. Sorry, nope, take that back. That I'm comparing to a quarter, not last year. But free cash flows up 114 million dollars. That part is definitely my forecast. So, in summary, and then I just have like two real quick slides, and I'm going to point you to 2026. So hang with me. We're almost done here. In summary, I believe it's basically controlled opposition, guys. Like, you got to just start leveling up and seeing that just because someone has AMC in their banner or on their account or talks about AMC, even has A-List, even does positive, even goes to the movies and posts about it, that can be a smokescreen. And there are many people who have sort of shown you over time were fake apes, who, some even echoed Citron and James Chanos and Martin Shkreli talking points. Like, that's just not ape to me. You can't be echoing the people who've attacked us. You start to say, okay, they're getting the script from the very people who are anti AMC. That's interesting. Anyway, so I just call them controlled opposition. They're trying to point to Q1 in isolation and get you fixated on that instead of, focusing on things like, hey, the final 9 months combined of 2025 have been cash flow positive when we get to the end of this. That's a big deal that you should be celebrating. That's starting to approach a full year of positive cash flows. And they are not going to show you the combined Q4 and Q1 view that is positive cash from operations and that I showed you was a manageable burn in free cash flow. And then I want you to remember that cash flows are real time. So in Q1, while we talked about that being lighter, but look at what happens in March. March starts to kind of turn a corner. You have hoppers, that Pixar movie I showed you. You have that Exorcist movie. You have I Can Only Imagine. You have Project Hail Mary. All of those and even more are coming out in March. Plus, you have some movies in late February that carry over. So March starts to be a little better. So you're kind of saying like, I really just kind of got to get through January and February. That's not going to be that hard, and that's why I said Adam's going to have access to, lines of credit and ways that he can hold us over, revolving credit facilities and things. Uh, and I just don't think it's not even anything I've thought about at all. And anybody who's kind of pushing that narrative, it just immediately outs them in my mind. And it's all the people, honestly, that I've already called. And many of you just have chosen not to believe me, but I hope it's becoming more and more obvious that I'm right about them. And here's the thing, if cash flows are real time, I mean, it's only April 3rd that you get the new Mario movie. Go look at how big Mario was in 2024. And so history repeats a little bit because in 2024, I said, you guys, when that movie comes, we are turning the corner in big, big, big ways. Actually, I'm sorry. Mario was 2023. Okay. But go ahead and go look at that one. And that was the first positive net income quarter we had in the entire ape or retail era, post COVID era. And so Mario comes, the cavalry is coming, and look at how it's already basically the very beginning of April. Really, that means it's the 2nd of April. And I don't know. Last time around, Mario even did some early previews. Let's see what happens here. But the point is, it's not just like, oh, Q2 gets a little better, and then in your mind you're like, yeah, but when is that? Is that in May? Q2, kind of the second we close the books, in a very literal sense on Q1, boom, we are into. In fact, let me go back. Let me show you. I just really want you guys to understand where your business is going. Let's look at this. Let's see if. Okay. When we get to Q2 of 2026, let me go up here. Look at the jump we're making from now. So, woo, we're going to start making real big jumps. And then we start trading out old quarters. You're going to be at a place that we have not been, in 6 years. That's what Adam's starting to tell you. Like, things are going to be, we have the best Q4 right now in 6 years. You just wait for Q2, Q3, and Q4 of next year. When we got like Mando and why don't even jump Avengers, and just a whole lot of, we got the Odyssey. So probably next video, I'm going to do the rest of 2026. You have to ask in your mind, basically, okay, in fact, let's go back. If he nailed the kind of 1 year out view, even more than 1 year in 2023, and at the end of 2024, he did it again. He told me like more than a year before everything happened, even before Adam and Sean told me it was happening, this guy told me what was going on in the business. And now I'm telling you our cash flows for the first couple quarters. And pretty soon here, then I'm going to tell you the rest of the year. And I mean, it just should be pretty obvious. I'm about to tell you, like, in fact, sorry, I'm bouncing around a bit, but I think it's going to become so clear. I'm about to tell you, like, if you look at, not that one, if you look at Q4 this year and the cash flows that we're generating in the, well over 9 digits per quarter, and you think about how Q2, Q3, Q4 next year are phenomenally big, plus we've got lower debt, plus we've got more premium screens, plus the Fed has lowered interest rates. The way it's going to look next year is going to be I mean, I'm sort of teasing it out, right? But I'm telling you that unless you think I'm just completely bananas wrong, and you for some reason want to believe the negative shills and everything's a disaster and the sky is falling in Q1, so unless you think I'm wrong, then and you go, no, he keeps nailing it, he's going to be right again, then we're getting through Q1 and we got to just chill and let Adam team manage it. Plus it's way better than last year. And then the rest of the year is so big that I almost can't put words to it right now, but you know the real words I can put to it. We will win. So let's go.